Remember fun? It will be waifu time soon, but the time right now is story time. Ahem. The year was 1991, and Canon, the camera company, spun off a 3D engine from their research lab for businesses and films to use as computer-aided design. Works on Windows 3.1, predated DirectX and OpenGL, but it was a 3D engine environment. For what it was pretty good, simplifying a lot of the 3D workload, and this thing was called Renderware. Years later, they started a small game development studio to make some video games as glorified tech demos to sell the engine to publishers and studios. In much the same way as they watched id Tech do with Doom and Quake engines in the late 90s, and Epic with Unreal in 98. This had minor success on PC, as it was, majorly cucked by the aforementioned engine giants, which were all much better, but more expensive. But when the PS2 generation was in development, next slide please, they hit their breakout moment. GameCube and especially PS2 were a nightmare to code for, and Xbox and Dreamcast were already basically Windows PCs. And so Renderware was the perfect cheap solution to speed up development of your game by like 8 months, at the cost of a minor performance hit. So cheap, in fact, that tiny studios of 6 post-college students could actually make their own demo PS2 game to shop around for distribution. The versatility was incredible of this engine. Sports games, racing games, RPGs, shooters, platformers, flight sims, even active worlds. By 2004, a quarter of all console games were made with Renderware as their engine. Big ones too, that you probably recognize. I'm talking Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, GTA 3 series, Killer 7, Burnout and other racing games, Call of Duty, Mortal Kombat, Sonic Heroes, Max Payne 2, Suikoden 3, Rayman 2, Bully, and a bunch of shitty sports games that were nonetheless industry-defining, as the unwashed masses began taking up the hobby in record numbers and consuming millions of titles designed for people with no taste, aka sports game fans. Their success would become too big to ignore, and in October 2004, EA bought Renderware and the Criterion Studio for $50 million. This caused a concern because there were at the time dozens of games already in development by what amounted to EA's competitors. And those other studios became concerned EA would essentially fuck with them, like start favoring their own games while shortchanging the competitors. Not to mention literally paying EA for use of their engine to make games that would compete with them. EA president at the time promised publicly that this would not happen and announced version 4 for the PS3 era. But this was Electronic Arts, and so they almost immediately broke their promise, canceled version 4 within a year, and later stopped the licensing program altogether. Get fucked. Now you could say, and they did at the time, that killing Renderware was due to Unreal 3 blowing all the other engines out of the water leading into the PS3 era, which was true. But they also definitely went through with the deal to sabotage the other studios on purpose. Renderware purchase was part insurance in case Unreal 3's crazy promises didn't pan out, but also a bit of the old corporate sabotage. 2 birds, 1 stone. In conclusion, fuck EA, and as a bit of trivia, the last major title made with the Renderware engine was in fact Persona 4 Golden. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Storytime video game industry is over. A little retrospective there. You were wondering, yeah, I bet you were wondering where this one was going. But we reined it in. We pulled it all the way. Thanks for being there with us. And, as a matter of fact, speaking of, what say we get to some Persona 5, shall we? It was very late, Dr. Dead. P4G came out in 2012 for the Vita, way after Renderware was long since defunct. But they didn't want to use a new engine for it, so they ran with it anyway. And there it is. Weekend streams or waifu streams and such. The current one is Persona 5. The last one was Persona 4. Remember fun?